My name is Vanessa McNeil, and I'm the executive director of Story Maven Media. And I wanted to get in front of the camera today as we talk about sexual health issues, all of 2020, and be honest about my story and how my experiences in my life have impacted and inspired this work. Many of you know that I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, but I want to talk about something that happened to me when I was 15 years old. I was at a point in my life where I was really invested in school. I was going to be the first in my family to graduate from high school, and I decided that I wanted to go to college. And one of the ways that I could prepare for college was joining this really amazing college prep program that would help first generation at-risk students get ready for that next step. So I joined this program and it was life-changing. If you made the GPA requirement for the summer, you could go on a really big summer trip. The first year I did that, I made the requirement, did the summer program, it was perfect. The second year, again, the summer was great. I made the GPA requirement and I could go on another trip. And that year we went to Branson, Missouri. We drove up in a really big bus, and we get to the hotel, and the head counselor gathers us all together, and he's talking about how proud he is of us for being responsible and getting our GPA requirement done. And he said, I know that you're all excited to spend your first night here, and usually, we never allow boys and girls to intermingle. You're usually on different floors. But tonight, I'll give you permission to go in and out of each other's hotel rooms so long as you leave the lock, the long hotel room lock inside the door. So if I check on you, I can just open the door. I remember saying goodnight to my friends, even though we still had people going in and out of our hotel room. I went to bed. I remember waking up. I don't remember what time it was, but I knew that it was early in the morning and the sun hadn't come out yet. And the only reason why I woke up was because I felt a panting, like a hot breath in my ear. And I remember turning my head slightly and realizing that it was one of the boys in the program, and he was in my bed. And I'll never forget his sweaty hand ripping my pajama bottoms down, and having his penis out and sexually assaulting me. And I didn't know this at the time. It took years of a civil suit that later happened to me realizing that night he took one of the hotel key cards from my room and was able to later gain access to it. And I wasn't the only one in my hotel room. I remember with my right hand reaching out and using my fingernails to claw the back of my best friend so that she would wake up. I thought that if I screamed that it would make him more aggressive. So I used my fingernails to try to wake my friend up, and she was a deep sleeper. And she never woke up. And I remember being able to tell him stop. I told him stop quite a few times and ripping my pajama bottoms up and pushing him away with my left hand. And eventually he ended up stopping, and he pulled up his pants and he looked at me and he said, "I'm sorry, Vanessa," and he left. And so I woke up my best friend right away, and I told her what happened, and we both just fell to the ground and we were crying. And I remember running into the bathroom, into the shower, and just scrubbing my body so fiercely because I felt so dirty. And I thought, if I just keep scrubbing my body, this feeling will go away, this feeling of dirtiness. I left the shower, came back outside up to the room, and we just sat there and we talked for quite a while about what happened. And she looked at me and she said, "Well, what are you going to do about this?" And I said, "Well, we have to tell the program what happened." And I let them know right away that a boy in the program had sexually assaulted me, and she took me, one of the main people in charge of the program took me to my balcony and looking at me, and she went, if the media ever finds out about what happened to you, the program will look really bad. And I remember not saying anything, but like feeling like, how could you be thinking about that at a time like this? During the hours and the days of this incident that followed, I was met with belief by the staff members. They told me that they were sorry so many times. There was never doubt in anyone's mind that I had fabricated the story or made it up or anything like that. It wasn't that way. In the future, that story by them would change. And that was heartbreaking and a part of a rape culture that I didn't even know existed. After the trip, I remember they put us on separate buses and they let his bus out first. They let him off the bus first. And there was a car already there waiting for him to pick him up because they expected retaliation by my family. And they let me off the bus, and we had to have a round table meeting with officials from the program, from the college that sponsored the program. And then they had a security guard there also. And my grandma came prepared with questions like, how could you let this happen? You promised safety. You promised that there would be hall monitors in the hallway around the clock during these overnight stays, and none of that happened. Explain to me how this could happen, and they didn't really have answers for her, and they said that they did the best they could. And I realized that the sorry stopped, and they handed me a pamphlet that said mental health services, and they said, like, here are resources in the community where you can basically get help. And that was it. A few months later, this experience manifested in my life to experiencing anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression. I attempted suicide because I couldn't find a sense of normalcy in my life after that happened. And even talking about it years later brings up so much for me. And I got to a point where my grandma and I decided, okay, the program didn't protect us, and we decided to pursue a lawsuit against the school. And I can, without a doubt, safely say that the deposition that I had in my lawsuit was more traumatizing than the actual abuse that I experienced that night with my perpetrator. I remember going into a room. I had just turned 19, I believe. I remember going into a room with a really long table. My perpetrator was there. His attorney was there. The representatives from the college were there, who then said that they didn't believe me. They thought that I had made it up. My attorneys were there, and I didn't know at the time that I could have an advocate there with me. But I remember sitting in that room as a camera is rolling, and the attorney asked me the most horrifying questions I've ever been asked. He said, "What was your GPA in high school when this happened?" I said a 3.75. He said, "What's your GPA now that you're in college?" And I said, "It's a 4.0. And he said, "You know what? I'm having a really difficult time understanding that this alleged sexual assault is impacting you if you're doing better in college than you did in high school." And it was just these back and forth, quick questions to trip me up. They brought up things from my past, prior abuse I had had, situations in my family that had happened that had no relevance to why we were there, but their point was to make me look like I made this up and it was all a scam or a scheme. And I was ultimately able to settle out of court with this program. My perpetrator never received any legal or monetary consequences for what he did. After we had signed the paper to end this lawsuit and settle, one of the opposing attorneys came up to me and he said, "I wish you the best of luck at Iowa State, Vanessa, and I'm so sorry about what happened to you. He said, I have 2 sons that go to Iowa State. And I was devastated, and I'm still devastated to know that that man, that attorney, had kids and he could treat me the way that he treated like me. What if that was your kids? Would you treat them the way that you just treated me? And if they ever came home and said, Dad, I had been sexually assaulted, would you ask them the questions that you asked me? This is, sexual violence, sexual health, and everything that encompasses this topic is an everyday battle for people. Whether you see their scars on the outside or not, people every day that we know are walking around with internal wounds. I hope that you know, as you're following Story Maven Media, and you're watching our videos and following the social issues that we cover, that you know that we have a vested interest in our personal lives to bring redemption towards these injustices that are happening. My name is Vanessa McNeil, and you can call me Brave.